this episode of the Weird Obscure World podcast.
A couple of stars wearing skin suits traveling through space and time. Being hurtled, actually.
On a rock.
On a rock.
Game.
All right.
Welcome.
Welcome to the couch.
Yes.
We're going to go ahead and start off with some, as usual,
some news.
odd news. You're up first.
I'm going to run with the news. We're going to go to Petersburg, Kentucky. All right. So, Petersburg, Kentucky, there was a Corey Lutz and his fiancée Lucy was visiting from Mississippi with her sister Laura in Kentucky. And they had record snowfall there. It's a good time, right?
Okay.
So they built a big snowman.
All right.
They thought the community loved this big snowman. 9 feet tall this snowman was.
In their yard.
In their yard. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, looks like kind of next to a shed or next to the house. Well, apparently somebody didn't like said snowman, so they wanted to destroy it. Maybe they had an 8-foot snowman and figured 9 foot's just too much.
Perhaps.
So they hit it with their car.
Stop it.
They run the snowman over with their car. But they packed snow to build this snowman around a tree stump.
Oh.
So
Instant karma.
yes, so somebody's car met a tree stump at speed. I love it.
Can you imagine? They're like, let's do this.
Yeah.
Just rip in reverse. Sudden stop at the end. That serves them right.
It does.
Who runs over someone else's snowman?
Hey, why would you? Why would you drive onto someone else's yard
Just to run over their snowman.
holiday spirit?
Just to run over their snowman.
So they didn't catch the car, but they came home and see a set of tracks in his yard.
The snowman's still standing?
Abruptly ended at the snowman.
Right.
Well, the snowman lost a little weight on the front end, but still upright. 100% upright. But the trunk was exposed.
That's fantastic.
So,
I'm going to build my snowman on a tree stump.
hey,
Not that we get enough snow here. For
from the looks of the tracks, it was a 4-wheel drive pickup truck.
Stop.
And,
They deserved that.
yeah. So
You Grinch. You deserve to hit that stump.
I certainly hope that that the expense you'll pay to redo the front of your truck is vast.
Yes. Yes, you dirtbag.
Don't drive on other people's yards. That's their problem.
And don't run over snowmans.
Unless they build them in the road, then run them over.
Go around. It's a snowman. They're festive. My story comes from California.
Oh.
Again, not Florida.
Why are we in California all the time? Florida's got a bad rap. When I think Florida's mild compared to California.
Yes, but there's something that's happening when you get closer to the ocean, I think.
I think so too. I think so.
Maybe
I
the
love
salt
the
water?
ocean.
I do too.
I love fishing in the ocean. I love every minute that I go there.
Yeah. Well, this may change your mind because California man. Police have arrested a California man who was captured on video licking the doorbell of a family he'd never met.
Just randomly licking doorbells?
Yeah. He also stole a few extension cords from their Christmas decorations.
So,
Look
which
at this guy.
came first?
Look at this guy. Roberto Daniel Arroyo spent an unhealthily long time licking the doorbell.
How long?
Hours.
Hours licking a doorbell.
Hours. This guy is standing next to, looks like he's staring directly into the camera.
It's like one of those
Yeah.
one of those doorbell cameras that when you push it, it kind of turns on and videos who's pushing it is what it looks like.
Well, it looks like he's licking like an actual doorbell that's on the wall, but there's a camera facing him. and the only thing he steals after all of this apparent doorbell cleansing happens is a couple of cords. He makes off with cords. So they don't really charge him with theft because we're talking a couple of bucks. But they charge him with prowling, and it's a violation of his probation. I'm not sure if the prowling is or the licking or the...
Oh, this guy's on probation? You mean he's been a criminal before?
Yeah, so...
Shocker.
So the surveillance camera, this creeps me out. So a couple of reasons I would never answer the door.
Look at that face.
He's really into it. A couple of reasons. My husband and I were talking about this the other day. There was these crazy killings where the person went to the door dressed as a clown. No. If you look out your peephole window and you notice there is a clown on your porch, if there is not a birthday party going on in the house, you don't answer the door.
No, probably not.
So this creeps me out because on the camera, the homeowners, luckily out of town, can you imagine if they were home and they're just watching this guy just licking the doorbell? First of all, doorbells have to be right up there with telephones for bacteria.
I'm wondering if this guy, saw the wife or something and thought she was pretty and says, I'll just show her my skills.
I'll lick her doorbell in the middle of the surveillance so that she can see my skills.
I wonder.
So the children were home at the time.
The children were home, so the children witnessed
The children watched this on the security cam.
How old are the children? How scared were they?
It's changed their lives forever. This is the stuff counseling's made for.
Oh, yeah.
Years from now, they'll be sitting in a counselor's office talking about the day the guy came and licked their doorbell.
They will not have to talk about mommy for years.
And since then, the Dungan family, which is, the Dungans were the owner of the doorbell, they say they have thoroughly disinfected I burn it, the bell.
Well, I would...
Gone.
I don't know. I think I'd go out there and
I'd burn it.
Infect it with Ebola or something and let him come back. Of course he ain't coming back.
They've disinfected the bell. They've bleached their doorknobs, thoroughly cleaned their porch, and found also, as they watched further down the surveillance, he appeared on camera relieving himself on the property, and at some point he even laid down and took a nap.
Well, that looked exhausting. He licked the doorbell for hours.
It was just stand there licking the doorbell.
I've got, one thing with, maybe it's the climate there that draws people who
are nuts,
unhinged, who really can't make it in society anywhere else. So they go somewhere where there's a climate that is welcoming for crazies.
Well, this guy needs a helmet.
Oh, yeah.
Make no mistake.
Football helmet. He can try to lick. He just can't get there.
Just banging his head against
on
it.
Doorbells after that.
Yeah. Crazy people are close to the ocean. I love the ocean. Yeah. But crazy people are close to the ocean.
We need to go to the ocean.
We do need to go to the ocean. We should do a show from the ocean.
We should, definitely.
Yes.
Definitely get a couple of lawn chairs, a couple of nice loggers, and just sit by the ocean, waves crackling. And maybe we'll get to witness and live stream a crazy instance.
Yes, like door licking, doorbell licking.
Well, now on to real crazy.
Yeah, because the doorbell licker ain't got nothing. He's got nothing on the McMartin preschool trial, and all of the people.
McMillan a few times.
Yeah, the whatever it is preschool trial.
A preschool trial. In 87 to 90. Now this one
is the crescendo.
This one strikes me as vulgar on so many accounts.
Yeah.
It's vulgar on politicians and I'm doing quotations. My fingers are going to fall off. A therapist. You'd think a child therapist would understand that children aim to please adults. And her question, but this is so disgusting. This is a life ruiner because of a police chief, because of a DA, because of a prosecutor, because of a child therapist. And it ruined lives. It destroyed lives. And on the same point, it changed the outlook of a whole community. Now, a couple good things that come out of this had better be in place. I don't know for sure, but they had better have better means of talking to children.
Well, I think that this is a cautionary tale, and I think that it's probably being used in sociology classes and psychology and psychiatry classes around the world in a bad example of psychiatry and psychology and the effects. And I think that what we need to remember is this just wasn't a trial. This was the longest, most expensive criminal trial in American history. It cost the government $15 million in investigating and prosecuting, and led to bupkis, garbage, nothing, not one conviction, because it was the crescendo of the satanic panic, and it was garbage.
Yeah.
Start to finish.
Give me a 2-year-old talking to him for an hour, and that kid will wander out there with all sorts of thoughts in his head that aren't true, like skateboards make you fly. A 2-year-old is susceptible to imagination. That's how they are.
Yeah.
And a 2-year-old is very susceptible to pleasing adults. And if all he sees is that I want to hear him say a phrase or a statement, eventually he'll come to that just to please me and just to get out of a stupid, boring interview.
Right. So to lay this out, here's how it starts. It has its origins in a place called Manhattan Beach, California. The first schizophrenic psychopath that steps forward is named Judy Johnson. She's the mother of a 2.5-year-old son who attended the McMartin preschool on about 10 occasions. She approaches a detective, Jane Hogue, and says that Ray Bucky, the 25-year-old son of the owner of the preschool, had molested her 2.5-year-old son. Now, this is despite the fact that the young boy was even able to identify Ray from photos, and the medical investigations of the boy showed no signs of sexual abuse.
Well, it started out, the boy had painful bowel movements. Well, he started a new preschool. You change a toddler's diet,
yeah,
and they're going to have painful bowel movements, or they're going to have runny bowel movements. They're going to have rashes. And just imagine, you take a 2-year-old that's never had tomatoes and give him tomatoes, that 2-year-old is going to get a rash because his body has got to get used to that.
Right. So the police conduct searches of the Bucky's home, confiscating such evidence as a rubber duck.
Ooh.
Oh, the devil, straight from the devil. A graduation robe, a teddy bear, and they arrest Bucky. They arrest him based on this evidence that they've collected.
Yeah, on a rubber duck.
So the next day, the very next day, Police Chief Harry Kuhlmeyer sends a letter to 200 McMartin preschool parents, informing them that Ray Bucky was suspected of child abuse and asking them for information.
So what the police chief did is he set up, he initiated everything by sending this letter saying, there's child abuse here. He started it. It wouldn't have happened if the police chief hadn't sent out a letter saying, this is what's going on.
Well, and the letter was clearly inflammatory.
Nothing but inflammatory. The police chief wasn't it could have, first of all, it shouldn't have been sent out at all. But had there been questions, they could have maybe sent officers around to say 5% of the customers say, hey, is anything weird going on? Have you noticed anything different?
Right.
And question, instead of sending out a letter which prompts the parents to jump in on this and go after it.
Well, it's clearly inflammatory. He uses, in the letter, it actually says that the acts include oral sex, fondling of genitals, buttocks or chest area, sodomy, possibly committed under the pretense of taking the child's temperature. And he goes on to add that that photos may have been taken of your children. So he sets these parents up with the idea that they have evidence and the parents need to be vigilant. They need to, interview their children, find out what's happened.
A PSA on steroids.
Yes. So the letter ends by asking the parents to keep this investigation strictly confidential. Now, he sent it to 200 parents.
Confidentiality.
Yeah. Confidential from who?
Can we talk about Judy Johnson for a minute?
Oh, Judy.
Okay, Judy was a paranoid schizophrenic, diagnosed.
Legit.
Yeah.
This is the woman that made these claims.
Now, if we look into schizophrenia, that is a disease that you hear voices or you have thoughts that lead you to believe that certain things are against you, that there's threats everywhere. And there's probably an evolutionary reason why schizophrenia shows up in people. But in this case, especially, schizophrenia should have been looked into a little more. They should have handled all of this with better care. This lady, she became an alcoholic and later, essentially committed suicide through alcohol. But off of a delusion, a fire was started, and it went crazy. It tore through the media. It tore through the community. It closed down this preschool, and a preschool with 200 plus kids in it. That's a pretty big preschool.
Well, then we're talking, it's like third generation preschool.
Yeah.
They've been around for a very long time, had zero complaints.
None.
Not one complaint.
And it was upper middle class preschool too. It wasn't, one of the fly by night ones out of someone's basement or garage.
Right.
It was a dedicated preschool.
And needless to say, this letter, it spread like wildfire. And beyond the letter, Judy's reports of misbehavior just became even more bizarre. It was like she just kept adding to the story. She then claimed that Peggy Bucky, who's Ray's mother, was involved in satanic practices.
Peggy Buckley, the most grandma-looking of grandmas.
Yeah. Yeah. You can see that this just wore her down. And Judy Johnson goes on to claim that Peggy Bucky had taken her son, who was then 2.5, to a church where the boy was made to watch a baby being beheaded and was then forced to drink the blood. She also insisted that Ray Bucky had sodomized her son while his head was in the toilet and had taken him to a car wash and locked him in the trunk. Just bizarre.
Yeah.
Bizarre things. She goes on to explain that Ray pranced around the preschool in a cape and a Santa Claus costume, and that the other teachers at the school chopped up rabbits and placed some sort of star on her son's bottom. So
it's insanity. But the bad thing, here's another bad thing. These allegations, I guarantee, made it into the questions that Key McFarlane asked the other kids.
So here's where...
Leading questions.
Oh, yeah. And here's where it all goes to shit.
Goes awry.
Because as her statements get more bizarre, the prosecutors start to realize, they recognize that Johnson's allegations are the delusions of a paranoid schizophrenic. I mean, they recognize that.
I honestly think the prosecution was just all looking to get political maneuvers ahead.
Right. Absolutely. In all the research, it shows that the district attorney was in a race.
And this is common. We need to figure out how to hold prosecutors, district attorneys, lawyers, all that, accountable for their misactions.
Yep, feet to the fire.
The people should be able to hold them accountable for spending $15 million on nothing.
On garbage.
They should be able, now granted, electing them out is one step. But I think seeing a prosecutor out on the side of the road picking up garbage, whether we fire him or not, but just making him spend, say, 300 Saturdays picking up garbage might be a start. Just anything to say. And we make sure that there's a page dedicated in the paper for every paper forever that has your face saying you're crooked.
Right.
This is because they get away, they can mishandle a case belligerently and walk away scot-free.
Yeah. So basically, here's what they say. We're not going to handle this. It's the delusions of a paranoid schizophrenic. However, good old Chief Kohlmeier's letter has now led to new accusations. And these parents are demanding, as would any parent. You get that letter like, you better back this up. What's going on?
Oh, you better believe it.
The parents start demanding, they're pressuring the district attorney's office to do something, investigate this. What's happening? And bowing to the pressure, this district attorney says, okay, fine, we'll do something. And he hands it over to Crazy Key McFarlane, who is not a psychiatrist, not law enforcement, not a physician. She is a consultant for the Children's Institute International, which is an agency created for the treatment of abused children. So she has absolutely nothing, no degree to give her any reason to be investigating this. She doesn't know what the crap she's doing.
She has no incentive to find out the truth. She has incentive to find abuse.
Yes.
That's her job. That's what she wants.
The district attorney hands it over to her. I don't know why. At what point? I think this is where...
It's like you passed the buck at the wrong time.
Right. This is where everything went to shit.
And then took it back at another wrong time and ran with it.
Well, I think that he hands it to someone who's unqualified, ill-equipped, and not intelligent enough to handle it. And then he takes her findings and is like, well, we need to prosecute
doctor's
this.
office would have been better.
Anybody.
Any basic doctor's office. Well, the parents were encouraged to send their kids to the Children's Institute International, CII, for 2-hour interviews. How do you interview a 2-year-old for 2 hours?
Yeah.
How do you get a 2-year-old interested in Dora the Explorer for 2 hours? Well, let alone an interview.
And you know that the first 10 minutes is them saying, no, it didn't happen. And the last hour and 40 minutes is them learning the script you want them to know.
Yeah. Just asking them leading question after leading question after leading question until the child finally says, yeah, okay. Can I go home now? You know.
And in all of the videos, because these were all videotaped, in every one of them, the children start out denying.
Yep. Start out.
Deny.
They don't even deny. They just don't have any information on what was said. But they continuously ask these leading questions. Did you watch another kid get this? Did you get touched here? Did you do this? That continually.
Well, and you can see in some of the videos that they're saying, are you sure? Well, little Billy said it happened. Are you saying little Billy's a liar?
Yeah.
It's absolutely inflammatory from start to finish, and they're being done by someone who's not qualified. Not qualified.
Yeah. Well, and in the additional interviews, 150 children received medical examinations
from
Dr. Astrid Heiger of the CII.
Of the CII. Again, conflict of interest.
Concluded that 80% of the children she examined had been molested. Not based on her findings of physical evidence, but on medical histories. What does that mean?
Yeah.
We have no physical evidence. There's no,
Little Tommy had an ear infection 2 years ago.
There's no damage to their backside, but I'll be darned if this medical history, he got all his vaccinations, so he's been molested.
So, that's not funny, but that's funny. So, given the investigation and the findings and the conclusion of these completely unqualified people of the CII, which I hope is disbanded, we should check that out.
Nope.
What?
Nope. They operate as the Child Protective Service of California.
Well, I certainly hope that they've started doing some vetting of their people.
I certainly hope that they've opted to deal with using real law enforcement and real medical doctors to deal with this criminal stuff, and they just come in as maybe something that throws money for help.
Yeah, support.
But yeah.
So, given all of this, unqualified opinions of the CII, March 22nd, 1984, Ray Buckey, Peggy Buckey, who's Ray's mother, Peggy Ann Buckey, who's Ray's sister, Virginia McMartin, who is the founder of the preschool 30 years earlier, and 3 other teachers, Mary Ann Jackson, Bet Rader, and Babette Spittler, are all indicted. They're calling them the McMartin 7. They're indicted on 115 counts of sexual abuse.
So with no evidence.
Zero
evidence. Zero of out-and-out complaints. Complaints that they went shopping for. They indict him on 115 counts.
Yep.
Life ruined on nothing.
And 2 months later, they had an additional 93 indictment counts. And the strategy of Robert Philopsian, who, by the way, was in an upcoming primary election.
Oh, really? He was looking to get further?
Yeah.
But thankfully,
he did not.
Shut down. The people saw through his dog shit.
Yeah. So his whole strategy was hyping up the case to boost his chances to win this election.
And it's funny. Bail for Peggy was set at $1 million. That's the grandma or the mom. And then Ray Buckley, he got no bail. He
held without bail.
No evidence, held without bail. No evidence. You need to have evidence to take away someone's rights.
Well, their freedom.
Their freedom, their life.
The whole thing started from a schizophrenic, paranoid psychopath. And a
schizophrenic, paranoid police chief.
Yes, clearly.
That police chief, I hope they found a different job for him, say, janitor at the prison, or, I don't know.
Garbage man.
No, that's too high. If he's operating anything above a mop and a bucket, he is outside of his realm of expertise.
Absolutely. So by the time the preliminary hearing began in August of 1984, the prosecutor, Lael Rubin, was telling the media, outright telling the media, that the 7 defendants committed 397. What an arbitrary number.
Yeah, 397.
Not 400. Not around 400. Committed 397 sexual crimes.
Digging around in the back of his pants before he pulled out that crazy number?
Well, they weren't even indicted for 200.
Out of his ass.
They were indicted for just over 200.
Uh-huh.
And 397.
We'll just make up more.
Yeah.
If I make the numbers stronger, they have to defeat those 2.
And he goes on to say that 30 additional individuals associated with the preschool were under investigation. Let's be clear. There wasn't even 30 employees.
Well, you've got the garbage man.
You've got the gardener.
The guy who checks the meter for the electric and gas company.
Clearly, he's in on it.
They're all in on it. There's a neighbor 3 houses down. And by the time the hearing began in August, Rubin was telling the media that 7 defendants,
committed these.
Yeah, that they had done it. That there was no real investigation into this. There was a quasi witch hunt. I mean, if you look back in history and look at the Salem witch trials and say, man, that was craziness. How'd they get there? This is worse. This is worse than that.
This is history repeating itself.
I would argue the Salem witch trials had a better judicial system deal with them than the one that dealt with these people.
Absolutely. Without question.
The searches of the preschool and the homes of the defendants failed to produce incriminating evidence. There was no photographs. There was no evil
secret rooms
or stars drawn on the walls behind a curtain or black candles around a goat's head. I don't know what devil worshippers have, but there was none of that stuff.
No goat musk.
Well,
perhaps there was goat musk.
Maybe in an empty house. No one's living in that place.
But they had created so much hype. They had got these parents, and you can't blame the parents. If someone sends me a letter that talks about sodomy at the preschool where my child attends, like my eyes get wide. I start checking everything.
I'm going to a different preschool, that's for sure.
So the parents, a group of nearly 50 of the parents, determined to do the job for these investigators, start digging in the lot next to the school.
Yeah, they're looking for the secret tunnels that take you to the dungeons of ill repute, I guess. I don't know. But they're looking for the tunnels. So they're using heavy equipment. They're not out there with hand shovels and rakes. No, they're out there with backhoes and excavators, and they're digging, looking for these secret tunnels.
Now, of course, the actual McMartin preschool is closed down. They can't get to it.
Yeah.
Because it's evidence.
Yeah, it's boarded up.
So they start digging in the lot next door.
They're digging next door. And shockingly enough, they find none.
Yeah. And it goes so far.
Was just a preschool. That's it.
It goes so far that the district attorney's office actually joins in the effort, and he hires an archaeological firm. And still no secrets. At the cost
of the public.
Yeah, the taxpayers pay for an archaeological firm in this witch hunt.
Hey, California, how's your budget?
How's it doing now?
I'll bet California's still paying for this trial.
So this all leads to the longest and strangest preliminary hearing in the history of history. And it begins before Court Judge Aviva Bob. This chaotic proceeding featured 7 defendants, the McMartin 7, and unlike any other typical preliminary hearing where, you try to demonstrate the cause, like, why are we here? It's kind of turned around, and the defense mounts an affirmative defense and starts aggressively cross-examining a parade of the witnesses and allegedly abused children.
I would argue they had an excellent defense, even though it took forever, because this was a witch hunt, and the defense saved it. Their defense attorneys were bulldogs.
Yeah, and can you imagine just having to sit through... I mean, these accusations are wild. Wild. Like satanic, ritualistic accusations. I'm telling you, as a defense attorney, you have to be saying to yourself, no one's going to believe this shit.
Oh. Well,
like, we don't even need to show up. No one's going to believe this.
The prosecutors took this on.
But the prosecutors kept Ray Bucky in jail for 5 years.
5 years on nothing. A life ruined on nothing.
So, Key McFarlane, back to CII, Key. First of all, Miss McFarlane, you should be ashamed of yourself.
She should be operating the bucket for the sheriff while he mops.
Yes.
Dog shit.
Yeah, so she testifies at the preliminary hearing that the abuse was able to go on for years because the children were suffering from denial syndrome.
Let's just make up stuff as we go.
Yeah. Denial syndrome isn't even a thing. She coined the phrase denial syndrome. You're not a psychiatrist, Key. Zip it. Sit down. And that by revealing the McMartins' dark secrets, the children believed that it would result in their own death and the death of their family members. Let's be clear. We're talking about a 2.5-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And kids near that age. I mean, there are some that are older, but they're 2 to 4 on average. They're not going to be afraid that revealing secrets are going to result in their own death. They don't have a concept of that.
Yeah, that's a concept that was put in their heads.
Yes. And she knows this. She knows this because she brought out their secrets using a set of puppets to ask the children questions, including Mr. Alligator, Mr. Snake, Detective Dog, and Mr. Sparky.
What is Mr. Sparky?
Yeah, I'm not sure what Mr. Sparky is. But they're all puppets, and clearly the children were comfortable telling their deepest, darkest secrets to Detective Dog.
Even a novice can see that asking leading questions to children in a criminal investigation might be a problem. You can't go to your kids and repeatedly ask the same thing, expecting that what they're going to give you is not what you want to hear.
And let me tell you, the defense plays these tapes, and they show one of the therapists, Sean Connerly, again, Mr. Connerly, shame on you. He's telling the child interviewee that 183 kids had already revealed yucky, and I'm quotation, yucky secrets. And that all the McMartin teachers were, quotations, he's telling the kids all the McMartin teachers were sick in the head and deserved to be beaten up. This is the therapist. Oh, I hope they took his license. Oh.
Yeah.
So it just gets more and more bizarre. Inconsistencies, contradictions everywhere. Like children reported being photographed after 2 hours of being interviewed. They report being photographed while performing nude somersaults as part of a naked movie star game. What?
Well, the testimonies of the children at the preliminary hearing was shockingly bizarre. It was riddled with inconsistencies and contradictions. The children would get up there and their answers wouldn't even be the same in the next statement as they were in the previous statement. They talked about secret rooms and tunnels and obviously stuff that was planted in their head by adults.
Yeah, one of them actually told of watching animal sacrifices performed by McMartin teachers wearing robes and masks in a candlelit ceremony at St. Cross Episcopal Church.
So the
Who knew?
Episcopalians are in on it too, apparently.
Yeah. It's like they were just grabbing it. Well, I think it was at this church, the one, the Episcopal church.
Yeah, the kids were forced to drink the blood of the animals.
And they said that the teachers took them to a cemetery where the kids were forced to use pickaxes and shovels to dig up coffins.
Manual labor. Child labor. They should have tried him for that.
Yeah. And then, of course, the teachers would begin hacking the bodies with knives. All of this. It's just, there's no way as a therapist that you could take any of this for truth.
The therapist led him into this.
Yes.
Led them into this 100%. By September of 85, some of the members of the own prosecutor's team began to express doubts about the case. One of the prosecutor team members said Key McFarland could make a 6-month-old baby say he was molested.
These are the prosecutors, people.
Yeah.
And mind you, Ray's still in jail.
And he's still in jail. Yep. They're just keeping him there.
Yeah.
And then, in December of 85, the DA's office made a decision in a meeting to drop all charges against all defendants except Ray and Peggy Buckley. So far, up to December of 85, the case had cost LA County $4 million, and the trial hadn't even started.
So, first trial. Defense attorney Daniel Davis, bless your pointed head, sent from heaven to take on the absolute worst case you could ever get. Ever. So a legal bombshell exploded just before the trial was scheduled to begin.
Mm-hmm.
Courtroom judge William Pounders, independent filmmakers producing a documentary on the McMartin trial, turned over to both the California's AG's office and the defense attorneys copies of a taped interview with McMartin prosecutor Glenn Stevens. In the interview, Stevens acknowledges the children began, get this, embellishing their stories of sexual abuse. And the prosecutors are on tape saying we had no business being in court. The prosecutors.
Yep.
Done for a filmmaking company.
Yeah, they caught in a moment of, I don't know, maybe it was introspection on the prosecutor's part. Maybe the prosecutors thought, this is not what I got into law for, so that I could, railroad and hurt people like this. And maybe introspection said, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag here. I don't know. It's ridiculous.
And not only that, but the exculpatory information came from the defense attorneys that showed also at this time that Johnson's son, the original complainant, couldn't even identify Ray Buckey in a police lineup.
Nope.
And
granted, the son is 2 years old.
Judge Pounders.
We're talking about a memory of a goldfish, but
yeah,
still, you'd think something horrendous happening to a 2-year-old, that kid would have some true memory of it. None.
Right. So the prosecutors are saying the kids are embellishing. They've got absolutely no business being in the courtroom. There's no evidence whatsoever. And it's been shown that Johnson's son couldn't even identify Ray Buckey. Judge Pounders, motion denied.
Yeah, they tried to miss him the charges, and the judge said, no, let's run with it. Because you know what? I just read the book about the Salem witch trials, and I'm jealous, and I want to be a part of Witch Hunt today.
And my daughter plays with My Little Pony.
Yeah,
which are clearly satanic.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, it would have been just as just if they'd have tied him to a log and see if they sunk in the ocean.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
Jury selection took weeks. Weeks. 12 finally selected, including 8 males, 4 females. Half white, 3 African American, 2 Asian, 1 Hispanic. All but 2 jurors had at least some college education.
God bless America.
Defense attorneys said later they were pleased with the jury. So they had an educated, objective jury. That's good. You need to have that.
If they don't have a check by the evidence, they don't have a check by the good medical investigation, at least they've got a good jury.
Wouldn't it be nice if jurors could say, we find the defense not guilty, we find the prosecutors guilty?
Oh, boy, that would change things, wouldn't it?
Guilty of what? I don't know, make some shit up. Isn't that what we're here for?
Yeah, that would change the constant quagmire of just garbage going into the court system.
Our legal system is schizophrenic. Our legal system, yeah. It really is. Because sometimes our legal system is so just that you're like, good
job.
And then sometimes it's out of whack crazy. But then also, our punishment system, do we, and I struggle with this in my own thoughts. Do we want to punish criminals? Is that what we're here for? Or do we want to rehabilitate? Do we want to put on a scale who gets punished, who gets rehabilitation?
What's the objective, people?
And then I don't want to say I'm for or against capital punishment, but if there is going to be capital punishment, shouldn't it be a process that I'd say I'm not for it, because you read accounts of people who were put to death, and then somewhere along the line, they went back and checked evidence, and it wasn't them.
I think the problem with capital punishment is humans.
Well, and also
it's the human interaction. We make mistakes as humans.
It's one thing you can't take back or make right.
Right.
You can't.
And so it's a pretty big mistake.
Yeah.
If it is a mistake, and how many people sitting on death row right now are innocent.
Or even someone losing 20 years. Losing 20 years for something they didn't commit. Where they get out and you pay them. Now, if we turned our court system or our justice system over to rehabilitation, is that the answer? And how would that look? You know, if they went in there and we tried to educate them more, or give them better tools, and maybe not make prison this place where violent TV shows are made out of because it's such a horrendous place, but tried to make it, I don't know, is Sweden doing it right or not? I don't know. I don't know the answers, but this is something in my head where I mull it over. And
I will tell you this. I don't know the answers, but I can tell you without question, in my opinion, our current status quo doesn't work.
No, it does not.
Whatever the next phase looks like, whatever a better way looks like, it's not the way we're doing it.
Yeah, no, it's not. You know, where you put someone in prison for life, what is that? What's the cost of that? What's the reason for a life sentence? Most crimes are committed by males between 16 and 32. And a life sentence to go on after they would have probably grown out of that phase of committing crimes, that's just punishment then. Where we could put them back into society and make them a productive part. Why do we... Yeah, anyways, we've got off track.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back.
So, in many ways, the actual trial was like this squeezed together, tiny little condensed version of the preliminary hearing. So the preliminary hearing has like 183 kids and 7 defendants and 400 charges and all of this stuff. When it gets to trial, they're down to still some defendants, but we're talking 2, not 7, and just a few charges. And I'm not kidding you. The prosecution presents 6 witnesses.
Yeah.
One of them is a jailhouse informant.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The other 5 are kids. So we go from 397 indictments of sodomy and child abuse and satanic ritualistic abuse of children. Yeah, to
tunnel digging.
5 witnesses and a couple of medical specialists and therapists. And even one of those witnesses was a woman who had sexual relations with Ray Bucky.
So, was it that she was mad at him?
Oh, I just don't understand what she has to add to the conversation.
I don't know.
What's the point? Maybe because they thought, well, 5 witnesses would just be dumb.
Yeah.
We got to have a 6th.
We got to have a good even number. Ooh, maybe they worship a religion where only even numbers count.
I've heard of those.
I haven't.
I have. The Process Church.
Oh,
all about numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
numbers of 3, though.
Let's not lead into that too much. You will get a show about church, or the Process Church of the Final Judgment.
Oh.
Oh, boy. Love animals.
It's where schizophrenia goes to connect. Yeah. It's like a dating site for
Super schizophrenia.
So, anyway, opening statements start on July 14th, 1987. 1987, people.
I know, we've gone 4 years now.
Good hell.
4 years.
And
Bucky's been in jail for 4 years.
And honestly, the district attorney at the time, Leo Rubin, characterizes the trial as one of betrayal of trust. And
yeah, betrayal of trust in your prosecutors, in your justice system.
Exactly.
I've lost all trust.
I agree. And Dean Gitz, attorney for Peggy Bucky, describes the case as one of an overzealous prosecutor. And he tells the jurors to consider that the Martin preschool operated for over 20 years without complaints. None.
Yep.
And that despite moving heaven and earth in a search for secret tunnels, pornographic pictures, semen, buried animals, we're talking 0 evidence is put into file the day the trial began. Nothing.
Yeah.
You open the folder that says evidence. Nothing.
The evidence bag was hot air.
Absolutely nothing. And the prosecution then goes on to produce several witnesses that kind of lay the foundation of the accounts of the children. Typically, a parent would testify that prior to the infamous letter, they weren't suspected of child abuse. But following the letter, suddenly they started connecting the dots.
Yeah.
And then there was, some theorizing that the massive abuse might have occurred during nap time, which is why the children weren't remembering it.
That's right. That's right.
Apparently, children at that age sleep super heavy.
Yeah. Now, George Freeman's an interesting part of that. He's what was it, 10 times convicted felon or something?
Yeah.
And he had lied to the DA on multiple occasions in and out of trial, but he became their star jailhouse witness.
He's actually on the stand. You can read the trial transcripts. He's on the stand admitting to perjury.
Admitting to...
How many times have you perjured yourself?
Not just
I don't know.
perjuries.
On the stand.
Yeah.
And not just admitting to perjury, but also admitting that he feels okay with perjury because he's friends with the detective.
Yeah, he's friends with maybe not friends, but acquaintances.
Yeah.
He's probably become an informant, and it's almost like you could see the movie playing out that a detective goes in there and says, we're having a real hard time with this trial. How would you like to... Or no. Probably a suggestion like, boy, it would be nice if we had some evidence on him from here in the jailhouse. And then, Mr. Freeman says, oh, really? What kind of evidence do you need? Well, we need evidence of pictures of naked kids and, things like that. Things that are physical evidence. And so Freeman just makes it up.
Yeah.
That he, before all this happened, like,
he was cellmates with Ray Bucky. And
Bucky had just taken the stuff to Dakota's and burned him and buried him.
Yeah, and that he told him all of this.
Now, where was I don't know if Bucky had time between police.
No, they arrested him that day.
Making shit up, police making shit up and then arresting him to make it to the Dakotas and back from California. That's a little bit of a march.
And we're talking if there's 397 counts of child abuse, that's a lot.
Well,
that's a big ass hole he's got to dig.
Just one Polaroid picture of each diddled kid. Let's say there's only 200 diddled kids, right? That's 200 Polaroids. That's carry-on baggage that you need to account for. Got to drag that through an airport and then drag it across the Badlands and then.
Well, and so the prosecutor doesn't have good witnesses.
No, prosecutor has no witnesses. The prosecutor has...
They've got buckets.
Malarkey. All of it.
And the key witness, the CII therapist, Key McFarlane, Key, shame on you. She was on the stand for 5 weeks, and she fought hard to defend her controversial interview techniques that included naked puppets. She probably abused the children with her naked puppets. Just seeing them. Anatomically correct dolls.
Where did the bad doctor touch you? And the kids touch their eyes and their ears.
Please make it stop. So she goes on for this lengthy testimony, and the judge starts expressing her concerns about the techniques that McFarlane's using. And outside the presence of the jury, the judge declares, in my view, in quotations, in my view, her credibility is becoming more of an issue the longer she testifies here.
Correct.
Why are we not thrown out at this point? Because it goes on, people. It doesn't stop there.
Yeah, well, the judge has the chance multiple times to declare a mistrial, to throw it out, but the judge is a part of the justice system.
Yeah.
To an extent, the defense is also part of that. And they need to separate those three. The prosecutors, the judge, and the defense should all be from separate paychecks, from separate, separate levels of accountability or separate directions.
So, high point of the trial, from the standpoint of media attention, came with the testimony of the defendants themselves. This is not something you see often, even back then.
Well, yeah,
they don't normally put the defendants on the stand, but I think the defense attorney was like, you ain't got nothing to lose. Let these fools cross-examine you because they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, we're looking at a witch hunt, so either you're going to be found guilty regardless, or you're going to redeem yourself.
Yeah.
Now, defense doesn't like to put criminals on the stand.
Right.
Because that's when the prosecutors can goad them and make them irrational through anger, and that's when something slips. But if there's nothing to slip, what's the problem?
So it was highly publicized. The media gobbled it up. Peggy, Ray, both just vehemently denied all allegations. Absolutely didn't happen. And the prosecutor, trying to do her job, just kept hammering them with questions with no relevant facts. You know, nothing was uncovered that she could use, but she just kept hammering them. They both did great.
There was nothing for them to admit to.
And get this. We're talking 30 months of testimony. We're now in 1989, people.
1989.
The jury spent...
Bucky's still in jail.
Bucky's still in jail. The jury spends an absurd, we're talking college-educated people, 2.5 months deliberating its verdicts. 2.5 months. You filthy animals. There's no evidence. It's garbage witnesses. There is nothing. And at the end of it,
during the trial, some charges were dropped. Because the prosecutor says, oh, he tore that up real good. We'll just drop that one.
Yeah. Garbage. At the end of it, guess what? Deadlocked.
Well, yeah, deadlocked. And then one of the jurors, the foreperson, said the interview tapes were too biased, too leading. That's the main crux of it. So they saw it as, first of all, let's lay it out like this. What if something did happen? The way they interviewed them ruined that. Yep. The way they led them into stuff ruined that. You can't do that.
Yep.
You're not even supposed to interview adults like that.
Yeah.
They interviewed children like that.
They destroyed any clear memory of anything good, bad, indifferent. They destroyed it. They replaced it with this agenda, this dialogue that fit the crime they were looking to hang these guys for.
Well, they made up a crime.
So, deadlocked. Goes to a second trial.
Second trial.
Look at that Judge Pounder's picture. Oh. Opie.
I don't know. Have you ever seen that show,
he's
Mars
got like
Attacks?
He's got like a 5 head.
He's got Mars Attacks. It looks like he should be like on Mars Attacks. Just got a noggin.
So this had been so publicized. This had been so inflamed.
Well, they'd already spent that much money. They want to get some, because right now LA County looks like a basket case. And
in the media, it is just full of propaganda. So a television poll shows that 87% of the respondents thought the Buckies were guilty.
Well, that's the media. That's because the media does this.
Yes.
They don't sell if they say, dog shit trial still running on. It sells if they say, this is what they did. Or they throw alleged in under their breath. They did. And, we do need to one day talk about media's influence on culture in depth.
Oh, we'll get into that next show. Because let me tell you, the media took this trial that was ongoing at the time and made a circus out of it.
They did. And
it includes, after this jury was deadlocked, 500 people. All right. Think about that for a second. Today, if someone commits a heinous crime, could you assemble 500 people for a march? No. You might get 12 people to respond with homemade poster boards. They had 500 people, including many McMartin parents, that marched through the streets of Manhattan Beach carrying signs that say, "We believe the children."
Yeah.
After the first trial. So,
There seems to be something in the culture as of right now that I think some of the things going on in the culture right now should take a look at this as well and say, are we running off the tracks? Are we going so far off the tracks that we might damage real victims?
So the second trial begins, and God bless these frickin' defense attorneys.
Yeah.
Defense attorney Daniel Davis, first thing he does, right out the gate, smartest move ever, have Judge Pounders go pound sand somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, he's off the case. And Judge Pounder is actually quoted as saying, I was honestly afraid I couldn't live through another one. I'm glad I'm off.
Oh, I don't believe him, yeah.
And the second trial starts out with a much more focused account involving 8 counts of molestation and 3 children.
So we've gone from 300 and
397
keep dropping them, keep dropping them, keep dropping them.
to 8. To 8. One of the witnesses, and they only offered 11 witnesses compared to the 15.
Wow.
And these 11 witnesses are like, again, across.
Just the best witnesses they could get.
Yeah. One of the witnesses was a mother who on the stand glared at Ray Bucky and announced, I'm so angry at you, I could kill you right now.
I would like to see what these parents think now.
So,
the children have come out and apologized to him?
Well, yeah, because, you get to a point in your life where you're like...
the children should.
Well, no.
The children were led to it by trusted adults.
Right. They are...
Kids. You kids of this thing who've come out and apologized?
It's not your fault.
It is not your fault.
Yeah.
You didn't do it. Unless one of you was like 15, it's not your fault.
So, the weirdest part about the second trial is the prosecution chose not to call Key McFarlane. Instead...
Oh, really? They didn't call Key McFarlane in? Shocking.
Instead, get this. She was called as a witness for the defense.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Why, did she back away on her stuff?
No, because she's crazy, and the defense wanted her up there.
So the prosecutor says, we're not calling her?
Not calling her.
And so the defense subpoenas her? They we want this in here.
Yeah. So the defense
These defense attorneys are, dude.
Yeah.
This is Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Olympics. He's just wrecking
that takes cojones.
Oh,
to be like, so you don't want to... Okay, we want to hear it. Yeah. We're going to put crazy on the stand.
Yeah. And this guy's got to have extra crotch in his pants.
Yeah. So this time, the trial was 3 months. And described by one of the jurors as, quote, excruciating. And the jury ended its deliberations, again, deadlocked on all 8 accounts, leaning towards acquittal on 6 of the counts, and leaning somewhat towards conviction on only 1 count.
What, that his name was Bucky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, following the mistrial, District Attorney Rayner chose not to retry.
Oh, following the mistrial.
Following the second trial, $15 million. 5 years in jail for Ray Bucky.
5 years. I hope they gave him a big old fat check when he left.
I doubt they did.
Yeah, you're probably
because he wasn't wrongly convicted.
But his freedom was taken away. His livelihood.
Yeah, they don't care about that. But we're talking loss of homes, loss of jobs, loss of life savings, the stigma. If your last name is Bucky, bless it. And all of this from the mouth of a paranoid schizophrenic and a schizophrenic sheriff.
Yeah, yeah.
So beyond that, I would say the effects of this trial, the McMartin trial, have reverberated through time and, like we, alluded to in the beginning, are probably being taught in current schooling. School of thought is that, listen, don't get caught up in things like the McMartin trial.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You've got to investigate. You've got to investigate by the numbers. You've got to question people by the numbers, because if you question them wrong, you might get a wrong outcome. To convict someone who's innocent of a crime, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, is worse than to get no conviction. When you convict someone innocent, you have two victims.
Correct.
And if a perpetrator gets away, you still only have the
one victim.
The one victim, or the one series of victims. And we need to make that a policy that we don't go for a conviction, we go for proper adjudication.
Right. And the system is broken, people.
It's
broken. So our next podcast, I think, to tie it all up with a little red bow, we should talk After Effects. What's happened since then? Where are we at? What did the media do, both during and following the trial?
We're going to go through the birth of cable news, which right now there's a lot of strife in the United States anyway because of the media. A lot of people might argue because of whatever, but I would argue it's because of the media. We've become polarized politically to a point where it's absurd. And when the media tends to feed that, whether they feed it from a neutral point or they feed it from one of the polar opposites, it's what it's doing. And I understand that the cable news needs to fill 24 hours, and that's their livelihood. But it's breaking us.
And that's where we'll leave it. Let's talk next week about the media. The people that report the crazy.
We'll give you a little Geraldo Rivera.
Yeah. Haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah.
There are reasons. Around. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us.
We hope you enjoyed the show. Have a great week.